What's up, everybody? Welcome to Untamed and Unhinged Reptile Podcast. We got the mad scientist David, and then me, Big Flexin, Finessing Reptiles. Today our guest is Steven from Leviathan Snakes. We'll bring him on now, but real quick, we're gonna shout out the sponsors. I'm gonna go ahead and play that reel for you guys. Get the sponsors shout out. Shout out. That's the sponsors. All right, let's bring on Steven. What's up,
What's going on,
Steven?
friends? You guys having all the fun?
So far, so far. There's a lot of people in here, though.
Oh,
We
that's
got
awesome.
Ro, we got SNK, we got Banna, you got Small Town Exotics that's first. Uh, Kingdom
Get it, friends.
Pythons, Dr. Joe, Shauna, Don D. What's up, guys? What's up, everybody? All right, Steven. So go ahead and tell everybody, what you work with.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah. I'm all down for it. So I'm Steven, and I am one half of Leviathan Snakes, and the other half of Leviathan Snakes is Courtney. But she's not here right now because she has the kids out at a park because they would be just running amok in the background right now. So with that, it's just me here right now, and we breed ball pythons pretty much exclusively. Like, we've kind of tried to maybe not breed, but like keep in other different things, but at least right now, the only thing that we are planning on breeding anytime in the near future is ball pythons. And with ball pythons, we focus on a few different projects, like pretty heavily. My favorite one is Sunset. Courtney's favorite one is Asphalt. And then we also have Clown as like a kind of bedrock. It kind of goes between everything, and we kind of layer a lot of stuff on Clown. Besides those three major ones, we also have a little bit of puzzle because I'm really excited about puzzle stuff right now. And we have, when it comes to like incomplete dominant and dominant genes, really excited about Neala and Furrow. Both of those are really cool genes that we're excited about. And we had made the first Neala Furrow clowns last season, and they look amazing.
are those the pics that you sent me?
One of them was. One of them. I'm not sure which one it was, but one of them definitely was.
Yeah,
So,
that was a gorgeous snake, by the way. Your
oh
sunset,
yeah.
I love your sunset though.
Oh, I love the sunset stuff. It's so pretty. So when we very first got into the hobby, like a lot of people did, we kind of bought random stuff. Like our very first snake was a banana calico hidden gene Wilma male. He was just a pet, and he was the best pet. We had no intention of breeding. We didn't have anything like that. And eventually it got to the point where I wanted to get my own snake because that was Courtney's snake. She had gotten him. And she showed me Morph Market, and when she showed me Morph Market and showed me all of the different combos on Morph Market, there was like, I want to say it was like a Super Banana Inchy Clown or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. And it was like $2,500. And in my mind, I'm like, that is insanity. Who would spend that much money on a snake? That's crazy. It's really pretty though. It looks really cool, but that's madness. And Courtney said that, like, well, if you got this animal and you got this animal and you bred them together, you would have a chance to make that. And I'd be like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. And then there was a couple other times where she asked if she could start breeding, and I always said no. I said that that's weird. You're going to have a bunch of snakes. Nobody's going to want to buy them. We're going to have like 10 snakes in our house, and what are we going to do with 10 snakes? And now we have like 100 plus snakes. So it is what it is. But
I was
yeah,
gonna
go ahead.
say, and it's funny you say that too because like a lot of people do think that though. Like
Hmm.
they'll at first they'll start off like, oh, we're not gonna breed snakes, but
Hmm.
then later down the line they do breed snakes.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
100%. It is. I'm super happy that we did it. But at first, it was Courtney was into it, and I was. I loved Amos, our very first one, but I didn't have any intention. I didn't have any desire to breed animals. I just wanted to keep them as a pet, and what ended up happening is eventually I got a blue-eyed leucistic male, and we met up in a Bojangles parking lot to get this. And while we were there, the person we were buying him from, because Courtney had found him on like a Facebook group or something like that, they told us about Repticon and that it was coming up the next weekend in the town that we were in. So we didn't know anything about Repticon. This was like, I'm pretty sure this was like right as the pandemic was ending when we went to our first Repticon, and you had to get like time slots. So you'd go there for like an hour and a half. And that was the little bit of time that you had. So we go to this Repticon, and while we were there, kind of got floored by all of the different morphs, all of the different variety. And that's really where we decided that we wanted to start breeding. I think we bought like 4 animals at that Repticon. And this was, again, very start of the pandemic, like once it had like opened back up. And that's when we really got in to start like buying stuff to breed, not just keeping as pets and all that stuff. So with that, we very, very quickly went crazy. So that was like all in like the summer of 2020. And by October of 2020 is when we bought our first sunset. And our thought process at the time was that we wanted to get one high-end project so that way we could kind of be known for something, if that made sense. So,
Yeah, it does. That makes perfect sense, actually. I said it's better than what I had. Everybody was like, here, buy that collection. It was like 50 snakes and, breed them, put them together, get rich. Like, I was like, okay, so that's exactly what I did. I bought 50 snakes, thought I was going to get rich, and that didn't happen.
No, it is. I can't imagine, because we didn't buy any collections. We didn't do anything like that. We very quickly, I feel like, grew, but it was like 1 snake to 2 snakes to 3 snakes to 10 snakes. And then over the course of 4 or 5 years, got up to where we're at now, where it's like, I think we have about 100 breeders / holdbacks, even if they're not all up to size right now. And then whatever we have for sale and stuff, which that fluctuates as like snakes come and go.
And how's the marketing for you guys? Like, how do you, like, when y'all sell baby, like, is it good? Is it bad? Up and down?
It's been, so I understand that it has been rough quite a bit for a lot of people. So our very first season that we produced, I think we did, I want to say it was like, I don't know, between 5 and 10,000. It wasn't like a ton. Well, our very first season that we had it, like somewhere in between there. And then our second season, it was about 20-ish thousand. And then our third season, which was last season, just from Square, because I had to do like our taxes, not including cash sales, not including social media, just Square from snake sales, it was 42,000. And then this year we're probably looking at about 80 to 100,000. So it's been pretty good for us. I cannot complain about it at all. I do feel like that in 2023, the really, really high COVID prices went away, and now they're like normal prices, not like the super, super high prices from COVID. But we've never slowed down on selling animals. It's just they don't sell for as much money as they were during 2021 and 2022.
And this is just like selling from your, do y'all sell like out your house, whatever you post up?
Yep.
And vending shows all together?
We vend, I think the most we've vended, we've done 4 shows last year. This year I think we're going to do 5. But we usually only do between, I think our first season we did 1 show. I think the second season we did 3. Last year we did 4. This year I think we're going to do 5. So most of our sales comes from really social media. And I would say definitely the highest end stuff comes from YouTube. But social media is, people might reach out on Morph Market, but they'll reach out being like, hey, I watch your YouTube videos and I saw you posted the snake. Like that kind of thing. So it's like, oh, social media drove that sale for us.
The conversion, yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
I just want to know, like, where do you sell the most of? Is it social media or is it in person?
Oh, social media. Well, it's definitely value-wise, social media by far. Like I could actually look at the numbers, but I don't have it because it's on the other computer. I'm on the laptop right now.
Yeah, you're good.
I would probably guess 75% of all of our revenue comes from social media sales, like whether it's YouTube or Instagram. But people seeing animals, or they see us do a video on a clutch and then they reach out and they're like, hey, you hatched out that clutch, are you letting any go? Like that kind of thing. Like I would say, I 90% of the best animals that we make never make it to morph market because it's getting sold through social media beforehand.
Sorry. Did y'all hear that little ringing thing? That was my
Just a
spring
little
over
bit,
here.
but yeah,
Yeah.
all good, all good. But
I
yeah,
was like,
no,
whoops, sorry.
the market has been really good. Again, I do think prices fell during 2023 as like various different kind of conditions came into effect where there was a lot of supply, there was reduced demand, there was economic uncertainty going on, all of that stuff combined to where people weren't buying as quickly, but people were still buying. And the thing that I've noticed at least is that the brands that had the biggest presences online, in at least anecdotally, the people I've talked to have seemed to be the brands that kind of gobbled up the majority of the sales that were left. And that it was the sales that kind of went away were the sales to the people who nobody knew who they were. If there was, let's say, 1,000 people buying snakes in 2022, and that was enough for everybody to get some level of sales, and then in 2023, there's 300 people buying snakes. That 300 people buying snakes, they're all going to the people that are like the biggest brands, at least what I've noticed.
Interesting. Okay, I see what you're saying. So, like big name branders, pretty much. So
I
like Babu or Billy
Yeah,
Mutation.
yeah,
Okay.
like think of it like, let's say that there's a brand new breeder, just had their first clutches. They have really good animals. They have really awesome animals, but they have the exact same combo that Bob Vu has listed, and they have the same price that Bob Vu has listed. Realistically, it makes more sense to buy it from Bob Vu than the brand new breeder because you don't know that brand new breeder. You don't know if you can trust them. You don't know if you're going to get scammed. You don't know how well they take care of their animals. You don't know if there's going to be a problem, if they're going to be able to take care of you. But Bob Vu's been in the industry for 15 years. It's a safer bet to buy from the brand name. And I think that that's what happened in 2023, is that the biggest names dominated the market and that the smaller guys are the ones who really got the brunt of the slowdown.
Okay, I see. Okay. And like when you've been at shows like uh which I had the question and just lost it right now. It was like when you've been shows like who talks at the shows, like who, you and Courtney, or does one walk around? Do y'all look to see what other people have?
Oh
Y'all
yeah.
scope it
So
out?
both of us, both Courtney and I are super outgoing, and I'll jump in for Chris's question in a second. Chris
Yeah.
put me on the spot over here. So both of us are 100% super outgoing, and we're both talking to different people and just trying to make those connections. That said, I tend to roam more than Courtney does, and I like going around talking to other vendors, looking at all the different ball pythons, and Courtney is the more responsible person and generally is the one who's staying back and actually manning it, but we do 100% do both of the sales together. So we get a little competitive where it's like we're trying to see who makes more sales than the other person. So,
So it's a team.
but
That's awesome. Okay.
I
oh
have a
yeah,
question
yeah.
about the business side. So, are there any like market factors or like any like, I'll throw the term maybe analytics, or any like indicators that you use to kind of formulate like how you're gonna scale, right? Like how many, like if you see something like, oh, like we're gonna try to pair like more often in this project versus the other project, or like trying to
Mhm.
scale back, or like anything like that, like what goes into that thought process for you guys?
Yeah, yeah. So there's not hard. I don't have like a hard data on that. Like I'm not looking at like here's the expected value of each clutch and that's why I'm going to do it. Most of the time, there are some exceptions for this. We are pairing because we want to make holdbacks from that specific clutch to progress our own projects. And then what ends up happening with that is that we very much believe in the idea of like specialize in something so that way people know you for that thing, because it's way harder to be like any ball python morph come to Leviathan snakes, that's a much harder marketing like position to take, because there's always going to be somebody better than you. But instead, if we're not saying any ball python come to Leviathan snakes, we are, if you're looking for a sunset ball python, one of the very first people hopefully you think of is Leviathan snakes. So what ends up happening is that we're essentially trying to focus on the projects that we want to do holdbacks in, and then the byproduct animal, just the stuff that is, maybe it might be an amazing animal, and had it been the best animal in the clutch, we would have held it back, but we hit something better, so we don't need to. So an example on that is that we recently hit the first red stripe sunsets, and we made a couple different combos in there that any of them would have been holdbacks, but we held back the best one, and then we sold the other ones. So
I want to say I think they're fired, his sunsets. Let me see if I can pull up a pic real quick.
oh yeah,
As he
I love them.
as he talks, let me see.
But yeah, but a better answer for that, David, I apologize, I'm kind of walking in circles on, is that when we are planning out our pairings, primarily it's looking at what is going to progress our projects. And then we do kind of pay attention to like, what is the market potential of those clutches? Because if we feel like that we might get one good animal and then all of the other animals are going to be super, super low end, we might not do that pairing. Instead, what we want to do is we kind of want to
Is that it, Steven?
That is a banana super asphalt. So that's a Neala Furrow Clown.
Okay. I think I don't have it then.
Oh yeah, no worries. But overall, we essentially love our projects and we're super, super invested in them. So even if for some reason, if there was like a cost analysis done and it was like, actually, if you paired more in this project, we wouldn't give up on the asphalt project because sunsets are more valuable. We still love the asphalt project and we still want to make amazing asphalt and super asphalt clown combos. But realistically, I know it's not a good answer, but it's still fun and we want to progress our projects, and that's how we plan our pairings.
Okay, but is there like, so in terms of like pairing, like distribution, like do you ever feel like oh, we're gonna try to do like a little bit more pairings in this project versus this other project, and do you take into account like any cost ideas as well? You know, because like food and the maintenance and stuff.
We track all of that because we track literally everything for like our taxes and everything, but I don't really think of like that. Again, when we're doing the pairings, when we're playing for different projects, we aren't big enough where we're not pairing animals. Like, we are pairing everything that we have. Like, we don't keep an animal if we don't want to pair it, if that makes sense.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. So you're just like going full sending it. So the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If we're not planning on pairing something, like once we get to that point where like, we don't really think that we're going to use this animal anymore, we sell that animal.
Yeah. Sorry, I asked from a perspective of ignorance because I haven't seen that like inner workings of like an operation of your size and scale and like where it's leading to. So
oh yeah, no, I completely understand. It's a really good question, but yeah, we're not quite that big. Like we're probably going to have about 25 clutches this year, so it's a decent amount of clutches, but it's not wild. Like, it is definitely still in the hobby level. We both still have full-time jobs. I do, because I know it's been a little bit, but I gave my oath to Chris on that I'd answer his question. So
Yeah, I was like, there's two questions here for you. You got one that kind of is still in this topic that you're at, like talking about. It says the second one is, what is something that you didn't think you needed for shows but ended up being a gem and must buy for new vendors? That was the second question after Chris's.
Yep. This is not going to be super glamorous. Extension cords. Like, you're going to get set up in a place where the outlet is like, I don't know, just not accessible. And if you don't have an extension cord, you're like trying to like beg people on the street corner for an extension cord, or you're running out to like Walmart while you're trying to set up to buy one. Extension cords all day long. Corey friend. But there's lots of other things. Oh yeah, Courtney says snacks. So 100%. So.
All right,
all right, Chris's.
Yeah.
All right, let me scroll up. So I'll read it just in case anybody's just
It's right
listening. All right. So Chris Eaton asks, minimum $150,000 or 150,000 ball pythons for sale in the country. What does Steven from Partho, I like it, Chris, say to the 80% of the hobby who are breeding low end stuff because that's all they have? So I personally believe that if you buy, we're going to use bells because like bells are pretty solid entry into the ball python market. If you breed a bell, if you buy, let's say, a bell male and a bell female for $300 each, or let's go up, let's bump it up to $500, even though you 100% can get them cheaper now. So you spend $1,000 on that. All right, those two animals. If you breed those animals together, you are going to make all white, the whole clutch will be bells, all white snakes with blue eyes. Now, let's say that each of those babies you're only selling for $300, not the $500 that you got the parents for. If you have 6 eggs, that is still $1,800. That's still an $800. And granted, yes, you do have housing costs, you do have electricity, you do have feed, but you're still making a profit. And at bare minimum, you are breaking even after the very first clutch. So I think that there is still ways to be profitable if you're only looking at it from a hobby on the low end side. I think that the problem comes into for the lower end kind of pet level market is that people will buy $100 snakes, $200 snakes, $300 snakes, and pair them to other $100 snakes, $200 snakes, $300 snakes, and create snakes that are, they're great animals, they're super healthy, but they are not as visually stunning as a bell. And if you're selling to pet owners, and you could have a dark cinnamon combo or an all-white snake with blue eyes, most pet owners who are not part of the hobby are going to pick the bell every time. But it's not as fun to just recreate bells. And because of this, I think that what ends up happening is that a lot of the lower end side of the hobby ends up creating pairings and ends up creating animals that they are trying to do to progress their projects, but the byproduct animals don't stack up to the other kind of like kings of the pet market, and then they don't sell, and then that's what creates the situation where you have tens of thousands of animals on morph market that nobody really wants because they're not really geared to a breeder because they're not powerful enough, they're not flashy enough for a pet owner, and the people who are selling them aren't putting in the work in order to market them to the people who might buy them. Instead, they're just posting it on morph market and hoping that they sell.
I got it. Yeah.
So it's either like pied, all white snakes, sometimes albinos. They sell a lot.
Yeah, albinos, toffinos, candinos, all that. Bananas sell really well. Bright snakes that are flashy. I also think that we love the recessive stuff. The whole high-end side of the breeding focuses on recessives, but if you have, let's say, a banana that is triple het for something, it doesn't matter to a pet owner if it's triple het or if it's just a banana. If that triple het banana is $1,000, they're not going to buy it. They're just going to go buy the $200 banana because they look the same to them.
See what you're saying. Okay.
But yeah, I think that is a challenge that happens at the lower end side of breeding, and it's really, really frustrating because you want to be able to pair animals together and make something new and really contribute to the breeding part of the hobby. But I personally don't think that you can be an effective business doing that if you are doing it with $200, $300, $400 snakes unless you're specifically trying to serve the pet market. And if you're trying to do the pet market, you can do a great job with that. If you're getting your animals on frozen thawed, if you are giving them enrichment, if you are showing the pet owners that I am doing everything I can to make this animal the easiest transition to you as possible, you can crush it in the pet market. But you have to understand that it's a different market in the pet segment than it is on the high-end side. And they're yeah.
So, okay. So, would you say the market is like overly saturated, like everybody else, or?
No, I don't think that it's overly saturated. I think that, man, Chris, you're going to get me in trouble tonight.
Hey, Chris, I think one of his points is that the market is segmented, so it has different levels to it. and that it might be saturated or it might appear saturated in certain levels just because of how the breeders aren't managing, like Steven's mentioned, their marketability, right? Their marketing, or even like targeting certain types of snakes that sell better. So we just get a bunch of snakes, like he says, that just kind of stay on the market, and they don't really go anywhere because one, they're not particularly bred with intention, so that they have certain traits that make them sell fast, and two, the owners aren't marketing them really well to begin with. So yeah, so like certain parts of the market, certain segments of it are gonna stagnate and create that effect, that observation. But
So okay, I see what you're
like we
saying.
noticed, like we noticed with the podcast with Jared, he's like on a whole different part of the market. So like the snakes that he's probably making, like they get pushed out, they move much
That's
faster.
because he markets himself though.
Yeah, well, yeah, but also the types of snakes, right? Like he's selling like high end, like cutting edge snakes, so it's like a
Okay.
whole different ball game. So
Yep. I love the questions, Chris, but I also feel like um, that when it comes to, I got to be careful what I say because I don't want to say something and come off like essentially a dick. So I feel like that the solution to it is there. You can pick a segment, is what I would say. That doesn't mean you only have to do that segment, and that if you focus on what that specific segment wants and find whatever need that they have, whatever need that specific segment wants, and you are able to find a solution, an answer to that need. I know that this is like, I'm in platitude area and that this isn't like hard concrete advice to anybody, but it's hard to give advice to everyone at once, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
so if you're in the lower end segment, I personally would try to focus on pets. I would not just focus on pets as in cheap snakes. I would make the best pets that I could. And I would be like, all right, when it comes to pets, what are the best pets? They are the prettiest snakes. They are the most well-handled snakes. They are the easiest to take care of snakes. Those are the best pets. And if you can find ways to show everybody in that segment that you are creating the best pets than anybody else, you will dominate that market because, as Chris is saying, a lot of the big guys have left the pet animal money on the table. They've kind of ignored that part of the market because, objectively speaking, it is so much easier to deal with the customer service when you are making a $3,000 sale versus a $300 sale. The $300 sale very likely is their first snake or one of their first snakes, and that they are not as experienced with keeping them, so they have a lot more questions, and it's very easy for them to get flustered and frustrated. With a $3,000 sale, most of those people are breeders and they know what they're doing. And it's so much easier to deal with the $3,000 customers than it is with the $300 customers. But because it's so much easier to deal with that higher end segment, there is so much opportunity in the pet segment that nobody is capitalizing on. Let me say this. There's people capitalizing on it, but not the big breeders. The big breeders are just now starting to get to it. I love it,
Oh,
Chris.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. Hey, if you want, it's already 30 minutes. Go ahead and plug yourself, Steven. So shout out whatever you want to shout out right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So Chris kind of alluded to it in there. We have a Patreon and it is a blast. I did not realize how amazing it was going to be because beforehand I felt that Patreon kind of fractured your audience because it created an in group and an out group. That you had like the close circle of people who are in the Patreon, and if you're not part of the Patreon, if you're not paying somebody to be their friend, you don't matter to them. And I didn't like that vibe. So when we ended up making a Patreon, one of our things was that we weren't going to like have any exclusive like topics. If we talked about it in the Patreon, we would also talk about it on YouTube. We'll make content for Patreon and we do it through a podcast, but any topic that we talk about in the Patreon, we'll also talk about on YouTube. It just might not be the same video, if that makes sense. So, and addition to the like content itself, the community in the Patreon is amazing. There was somebody, like, we first did it just as the podcast, where it's once a week we would do a like weekly podcast, audio only. And during a monthly Zoom call, somebody had suggested doing like an IG group chat and a Discord, and we did that. And honestly, it's my favorite part of the Patreon now. Like, it is blowing up all of the time, and there's so much different activity in it that you can come into the Patreon and get connected with a ton of other people very, very quickly. And there's a lot of pretty big names in it, like Corey DeLong's in it, Patrick from Chimera's in it, there's Brandon Nixon's in it. There's a lot of really, really cool people in the Patreon, and you get to share everybody's knowledge, you get to form those connections. And whenever we're all out at shows, we're always meeting up and going out to dinner, and it's just a community that you get to be part of. And a lot of the all of the money that people pay in Patreon, it goes as a credit for a future snake purchase. So if you're planning on buying a snake from us at some point in the future, it's essentially like you get all of the perks of the Patreon for free, because all of the money you spent on Patreon will come off the purchase price.
That's a really smart business model. You're like essentially like guaranteeing sales for yourself in a way.
Yeah, we stole it from Miguel, by the way. We cannot take credit for it. That's how Miguel's Patreon is. It's anything you pay in it goes as credit for a future snake purchase. But it's a great idea. It's really good. Like,
That's amazing though. That's hella smart.
yeah,
I'm on-
RGI sponsors both our YouTube channel and the Patreon. So every Friday we are giving away a various shed tests. So it might be a full panel, it might be a pick 4, it might be like 2 individual shed tests for different people, but every single week there's a shed test given away to somebody in the Patreon. And last one on there, which this isn't an official thing, is even at the $5 tier, because that's our lowest paid tier, if you sign up for the Patreon, any purchase that you get 20% off. So if we have a snake for $1,000, you get 20% off for being in the Patreon, so it's $800. And then all of your credit goes off the $800 as well. So again, it's essentially like, if you're planning on buying a snake from us, it only makes sense to do it. And I'll take the self-promo on this because I'm pretty excited about it. We try to do everything we can to make it a no-brainer for people, if that makes sense.
I like it. I love it. And you're honest. You're spreading positivity. Everybody's coming together. I love it.
Isaac, take my money. I love it.
Sold.
There we
I'm about to like jump out this other Patreon, man, and go over there.
There we go. Well, we don't want you to take away from other people on Patreon, but we're all down for it. So,
they haven't been. It's been stagnant for a minute. So.
Oh, I mean, it's all the time. The group chat, like, has been blowing up. That's what I was talking to, like, we were talking about it right before. So, David, I don't know if you were on for this. So, were you at Pomona?
No, we weren't. No.
Yeah.
All right. So, I don't know if you guys have seen, I know I was talking earlier about it, but excuse me.
I was trying to lead into that, but.
Yeah. At Pomona, somebody stole a sunset clown. And if you hear any weird things going on, like somebody reaching out being like, hey, I have a sunset clown for sale and I'll give it to you for $5,000 or something like that, let KG know. Let KG or Troy from Best Dressed Balls know, and then they'll work with you. Because again, they're trying to like get this animal back, but yeah, somebody stole a sunset clown at Pomona.
So I'm trying to get him like more involved with the community because he barely speaks to the people that come on the podcast, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like hit or miss, like a couple of podcasts. And the snake that he's talking about is what is it, a 10,000?
Yeah, it's like a $10,000 snake. Like,
that's the crazy thing about the snake market, though. Like especially with those really like high end stuff, like it's like stealing art, you know? Like it's like, oh, here, buy this Mona Lisa, you know? It's like what are you gonna do, you know? Like it's such a lame thing to do.
Yeah, if I was guesstimating, there might be 10 to 20 sunset clowns in the world. Like, it's a huge thing. Like, and again, so it's just trying to push out the message to everybody in case you hear or somebody reaches out to you about essentially a too good to be true deal. Let KG from Bomb Projects know or Troy from Best Dressed Balls.
And not only that, dude, the same key works for every AR's key rack apparently.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just a thing is, if you have an ARS display, the locks on it, the keys for any ARS display work for all of them. So it's kind of useful because if you forget your keys, you can always like get somebody else's keys and open up your displays. But it's also, if you have ARS keys, none of the stuff is locked essentially.
Damn, that's just I don't know, scary. Oh, that's scary thinking about it. Like you go to the show, leave your snakes there, somebody's gonna whoop, gone.
Yeah,
But
it is. Yeah.
so my next question for you, Steven, is what's gonna happen with Partho next? What's next for Partho? I saw you're doing that Redline shipping YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, I'm stoked for it. So let me look. I gotta go. I don't know exactly who is the guest for July. So Partho, just in case anybody isn't aware, Courtney does Partho with Molly from Chimera, and it's a once a month podcast on both our channel and on Chimera's channel. So I don't know. I don't know, Ro, if there's a way to change the locks on the ARS display or add other ways of locking it. So we actually have different displays. We don't have the ARS ones, but all of our friends like have them have told us about this, like about how the keys work for all of them. Anyways, with Partho, I don't know exactly who's the next guest because they do it once a month in July, but I know that they have talked to, like, Bob Vu is going to be on it sometime soon to promote the Southeast Reptile Expo that's going on in Atlanta in September, and we are super, super stoked about that. That's going to be an amazing show, and there's a ton of really, really good vendors that are going to be there, but something that I think I'm really excited about is that Justin is going to be vending it from Canova as well, so it's going to be, I hope, I don't know if it's going to be this year because this is the first year. I hope that it gets to the point where it ends up being a national level show as well, because you can never have too many national level shows. Like, the more the merrier is what I'm thinking. So, but he's going to be a guest coming up, but I don't know if it's this month or if it's next month. And then there's also Andrew Lyons and Jacob from Sybil Serpents. They are going to be on because they do two peens in a podcast, and they're going to be doing like a crossover episode, I guess. But I don't know if that's this month or if that's next month. But those are the two guests that I know of right now. And I'm sorry if I wasn't supposed to tell anybody. I don't know if that was a secret or not.
Well, not no more. No, I'm just
Yeah. But no, it's been a blast. It is. We do weekly regular YouTube videos, and a lot of our weekly regular YouTube videos are very, very focused on like the business side of things or like building a specific project with a specific budget. And that Partho allows like a more, I don't know what it is, like less structured kind of way, because you can come in and just talk to somebody and have a natural conversation. And both Courtney and Molly are very, very charismatic and really funny, and they also roast each other nonstop, and they roast all their guests nonstop. So if you want to be bullied, that's when you will come onto Partho. Like,
I want to be bullied. No, I'm joking.
Well, yeah, Chris is into that, you know.
Oh, whatever, bro. Whatever.
degrade me.
See him in the end, man. He'd be doing so much.
This is slightly off subject, but I just was thinking about it on the Patreon subject. So I really like our Patreon, and I find it super fun, but we are also members of other people's Patreon. I don't know if you guys have checked out Chris Eaton's Patreon, but he is doing a series right now called Storytellers, where he is getting people like Mike Wilbanks, Justin, big names that have been in the hobby for like 20 years, and they're coming in and they're telling stories about like the old days and how wild it was. And I listen to, I'm not going to give away the spoiler, but I'm going to give just enough information hopefully to catch people's interest, so they go and pay the like $5 tier just to go listen to this episode, because this episode alone is worth $5. But Chris Eaton interviewed Mike Wilbanks, and Mike Wilbanks goes on to tell a story about how him and Bob Clark went to Asia in order to vend reptile shows. And it was the very first one that they were there. And while they were there, they ended up getting $75,000 in a weekend. And due to various different things and different disagreements, all the stuff, trying to get scammed out of the $75,000 almost happened. They ended up having to find a way to get $75,000 back to the US in essentially the equivalent of $1 bills. And it is an amazing story. It is wild. It is super cool to hear about like how insane the reptile hobby used to be, and this whole narrative on all of the stuff that they had to go through to get this money back to the US, and whether or not they actually got it all back to the US. And it is wild. Again, Chris Eaton's Patreon, it's the Mike Wilbanks Storytellers episode. Just sign up for the $5 tier for 1 month, listen to it because it's entirely worth it, and then cancel if you don't like it. Like, it's really, really good.
Man, I gotta go check this out. I'm missing out on everything.
Oh, Chris is killing it on Patreon.
Man. See, you too, David. You gotta go jump in one of these Patreons. Jump in theirs, Chris's. I mean, hey, you're trying to get a snake, right? It's his first
Do you
snake.
have snakes? Oh, that's awesome. What are you looking for just a pet? Are you looking for projects? What are you thinking?
So I can't really keep them myself. I live with my mom right now, and
So he uses my
but I've been using his kind of stuff. I haven't like had my own quite yet, but there's a lot of people like on the podcast and stuff that are trying to like get me one. And so eventually I'll probably pick one up, and it might just be like a little bit more simple to work with.
Yeah.
But something a little pretty, you know, probably. And I'll probably have it over at Chris's and stuff, and whenever I go over there to help him out, I'll probably take care of it. So.
No, that's awesome. Get it, man. Again, my very first one was a blue-eyed Lucy, and we still have him. Like, he's awesome. Like, they're so pretty. I love him. Like,
I remember that. I think I do, because when I came in 2018, I came in backwards. I was branding myself out first before I even sold the snake. But when it came to selling the snake, it was easy.
Yeah,
so my first year, I made $20K.
Get it, man. Get it. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I made $20K my first year, and that was all on merch. It was merch, cups, you name it, stickers. I mean, yeah. They were like, dude, you know how to brand yourself well. But then my dad passed away, and then I had to give that money to my mom to help with funeral expenses and stuff like that for the house. So now I'm starting all over again, from the bottom up again.
Get it, man. I'm a huge proponent of marketing yourself early, just because a lot of people get into the reptile hobby and do a ton of work. They do a ton of research and they learn everything about the animals, and they don't pay attention to the business side. And I personally think it is way harder to sell a ball python than it is to breed a ball python. And if you don't have any skills built up around selling and marketing yourself before you have animals to sell, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get flooded with babies once hatchling season comes time, and you're going to get overwhelmed by trying to feed them all. And when you're not making sales fast enough, it's going to be really, really discouraging. I very much advocate for people to market themselves early before they actually need to market themselves, because then it's too late.
And I want to say this now, because like we're talking about everything that's going on right now. Before we jump back into Steve talking about the Redline podcast. Man, I had lost my job 3 weeks. I was talking to somebody in the community. She reached out to Cold Blooded Cafe. Cold Blooded Cafe then gave me credit, helped me out get feeders, because my job didn't want to pay me money. They owe me $1,600, and they weren't going to pay me. They were paying me under the table, but they said it wasn't legal, so they weren't going to pay me. So whatever, right? So I bring Desiree on the podcast, and then after that podcast, Desiree was like, Chris, I want to sponsor your podcast. So it's an amazing podcast. I love what you're going for. I love the positivity. I love the way you bring unity to the community. So ever since then, after that, she became a sponsor, and getting those feeders, and we got the code, the Untamed 20. You get 20% off for the feeders. And then I've been getting messages. Like today, I got a message says, "Man, thank you for your promo code. It's saving me money on feeders." And I appreciate that. So I was like, "Dude, that's badass." And I sent it to her, and she's like, "That's amazing." So
that's awesome. That's super cool.
I mean, I've been like in and out, up and down on the rough side. So sometimes some days are bad, some days are great. So you just gotta keep going. That's all I wanted to say. Is just keep going.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, that's super, super cool, and that's awesome that Cold Blooded Cafe did that for you. But so you were asking about the Redline road trip, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the Redline road trip. So going back a little bit. So last year, I think it was December of last year, we released the 15 minutes a ball python documentary. And that documentary was an hour and a half. It was a feature length documentary that we made with Chris Eaton, with Brian Rivera, with Justin, with a lot of other amazing people in the reptile hobby. And from that documentary, it really, really ignited kind of like an interest in mine to continue making like documentary storytelling specifically on the reptile hobby, the ball python breeding hobby, because that's what we know. And there wasn't really a whole lot of stuff out on that at that point in time. So we released it. It comes out. We got a ton of really, really positive support, a ton of really positive feedback about it. So going into 2024, we decided that we wanted to expand it and also make it a little bit smaller, because that sounds a little weird. And the way that we were going to do it is we did a feature-length documentary for our very first one, which was really hard. There was a lot of people that were involved with it, and we were traveling to New York, we were traveling to Tennessee, there was going down to Georgia, a lot of different travel that was involved with it. And with it being an hour and a half, what ended up we realized was that there'd be big sections where we had the interview done, but there wasn't like relevant B-roll to like help add to the story. So going into 2024, we went about doing a documentary mini-series, and that's what we've been filming throughout 2024. And rather than it being an hour and a half or 2 hours like a regular kind of feature length would be, we are focusing it down to about 30-ish minutes an episode, and they're focused on one individual person. So people that we've filmed with so far is Corey from CD Constrictors, Bob Vu of Bob's Balls, Troy Schroeder of Best Dress Balls. We're going to be going out to Brock Wagner's. We're going to be filming Patrick and Andre from Chimera. We're going up to... Oh, so this is where the road trip comes in. So all of this, there's a lot of travel that's involved with this. And we didn't do a sponsor for the original documentary, but we felt that with all of the travel that's going on, we are planning on going up to Canada for the CRBE, and we're going to be recording with Billy from Mutation Creation for a documentary episode. So Courtney could not come, or she isn't able to come, the weekend that we're going to be doing this because she's going to be vending the Southeast Reptile Expo. And that's the same weekend of the Canadian Reptile Breeder Expo. So I'm going to be going up to Canada for that, and we reached out to our friend Shane about seeing if he wanted to come on the road trip with me. And as we're talking about this, we bring up, because he's sponsored by Redline, about the idea if Redline wanted, if they'd be interested in sponsoring it. And I had just recently gotten like a new Mustang that's like a convertible. It's red. It honestly kind of fits pretty well. So what we ended up doing is we talked to Robin, and Robin is super excited about the idea. So Robin is sponsoring the entire trip for us going up to Canada. And we have this decal that we end up putting on the Mustang, and we are pretty much going to be filming a bunch of content. All of it's going to be branded to Redline because it's the Redline road trip. And he is sponsoring the documentary mini-series, and he's sponsoring that specific trip up to Canada. So all of that said, I know I'm talking a lot on this. What this means for everybody else, we are trying to really, really push an in-person community event this fall. And there are a ton of amazing shows that are in the reptile hobby. This starts off at Daytona, there's Arlington, there's the Southeast Reptile Expo, there's the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo, there's Tinley, there's the Canadian Reptile Breeder Expo. And what we want to do is we are trying to kind of urge people, give them the last little nudge if they were thinking of going, to go out to one of these shows. And as they're going out, document your travels into it. Don't just go look at some animals and come back. Like, take pictures, post them to social media, tag Redline Road Trip, so that way everybody else can be sharing it with you. So that way we are all joining in on a road trip together, and it can kind of be a community event that doesn't really require money. And it doesn't really require traveling across the country, because you can just pick the one that's closest to you and go to that show. and then you can join in that way. So we just felt that it was a really fun, cool way for everybody to join in, and it gives you the opportunity to go out and potentially meet people that you watch on YouTube and really look up to, or that you've bought animals from before but you never had a chance to meet them. So again, trying to urge people to go out to several of these different, or at least one of these different big shows in order to form the connections in person, which, in my opinion, if you want to be a reptile breeder at a level that's more than just a hobby, the personal connections and the networking is invaluable.
Dude, that's awesome. That's amazing. It sounds like fun, really.
Yeah, I'm stoked for it. I can't wait. Which one are you going to? What show? What show are you going to jump
Oh,
onto
well,
Redline
there's the
Road
one
Trip?
coming in San Antonio, which we're in talks being the permanent podcast for them. It's Reptilian Nation Expo.
Yeah, that's
So,
perfect. Yeah.
That's August, right?
yeah, that's August 3rd. So I'll be taking David. Me and David are going to be there. And it was like, send me your logos and everything. So I already sent him the logo. So I don't know if he's making a reel or making a video. I don't know what he's doing with our logos. So,
That's
but
awesome.
I'll definitely contribute to that. So just let me know where I got to send those pics or whatever I got to do.
Just post them on Instagram, and then do, like, if you're doing this like a regular post, do hashtag Redline Road Trip and then tag Redline Shipping, and then also tag like myself and Shane, and we're going to help share stuff. And then again, if you see other people who are on their own road trip, engage with them, being like, if you see somebody else posting that they are on their Redline road trip and they're going to Schaumburg or something like that, comment on it being like, hell yeah, I'm doing my Redline road trip for this show on this date. I can't wait to see you there. That kind of thing. It gives you a commonality. It makes an easy way for you to form connections in the hobby.
Oh, Small Town Exotic, Shane.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about now. I was like, when he said that, I was like,
yeah.
oh, okay, yeah,
I'm
he's
sorry,
cool.
I forget.
I watch his stuff too.
Yeah,
he's awesome. This guy
Redline
rocks.
Shipping. Yeah, Shane's awesome.
Yeah.
I talk to him just about every day.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, hell yeah. So I got 2 questions.
Okay.
And then we're out of here. First question is, if you could change one thing in the hobby, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. If I were going to change one thing in the hobby, it would be that people don't feel the need to attack others in the hobby in order to try to promote whatever they like. I think that it's pretty common for people to like something. I'm going to use like we just made a video today where it was like, the title of it is, Has Hypo Overthrown Desert Ghost? And in the video, this is a spoiler alert in case anybody hasn't watched it yet, but we're essentially saying that they're both amazing and that they do different things, and it depends on what you want. But I think that what has happened in the past, and what happens pretty commonly, is, let's say that you are a huge DG fan, that they would essentially talk about all of the reasons why they think Hypo is trash, rather than talk about why they love DG, or vice versa. They're a huge Hypo fan, and they talk about all of the reasons why they think DG is bad and why they love Hypo. And I think that if we could change one thing, it's that essentially people weren't quite as critical and quite as negative as what they seem to be, and that they're just like, yeah, I love my thing and here's why I love it. You can love your thing too. I might not agree with you, but I don't need to try to tear you down.
And the sad thing is there's a lot of that going around. And it's hard for like us as positive podcasters, because that's what me and David and Eric shoot for. We're just straight positivity. We try to lift people up. We ask you to come on the podcast. We want to get to know you, vibe with you, and see where it goes from there. And that's exactly what we do. So my next question is, like, what do you think of the podcast so far, Steven?
Oh, it's super good. It's awesome. And I'm super sorry that I do have to cut it like short
an hour.
Because again,
I got you.
Yeah, I just don't want I don't want Courtney to have to stay out of the house until like 9 o'clock with the kids. And then I don't want the kids running around in the background causing havoc.
Chris, he's so funny.
I love it. It was. I quote you in it, Chris. You have to watch it. I quote you in like the first 5 seconds. At least give me 5 seconds, Chris.
And it was funny too, because I was gonna wear my Batman shirt, but I didn't.
No, Chris is awesome.
They'll survive, Steven. Okay, well, I appreciate your time, Stephen, for the hour, because we're already gonna hit that mark in like 4 minutes. So I'm just gonna let you go ahead and go. But before we go, I want you to give us a positive message for all your viewers watching.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And again, I've said this different videos and all that stuff, but it is breeding reptiles, trying to be part of the hobby, in my opinion, is super, super fulfilling, but it can very quickly get overwhelming. It can very quickly get to a point where you are overextending yourself. If that is happening, if you are feeling burnt out and you are feeling that you are not enjoying it anymore, there is nothing wrong with taking a step back. But what I would urge you to do is if you get all the way out, there's a very good likelihood that at some point in the future you will want to get back in and at least hold on to something. So that way you're not starting from scratch if you ever decide that you want to get all the way out.
Awesome. Oh yeah, you got time for one question, David. What you got?
Is there so progressing with your projects, right? Like I know that's a big
Mhm.
key, but is there any musings of any additional projects or any additional morphs or traits that you're going to go
Um,
for?
Not right now. The ones that I've been pretty interested in, but we're not quite ready. We don't quite have the females for them yet. I think I'm really excited about Bambino. I'm really excited about Cosmos. There's not very many brand new genes that are coming out in the ball python hobby, and the fact that there are a couple that are out right now that haven't actually been distributed widely yet, I think it's pretty exciting. Like, we have friends who were in when banana was $50,000 for a banana. And we have friends who literally were selling bananas for 50K a pop all season long. And that seems wild to me. But I do think that there is some level of potential with that, with some of these brand new genes that are coming out, with how well they're being managed, the project wise, and just how amazing they are on what they can do. So if there is a new project that I'm most interested in, it's either Bambino or Cosmos right now.
All right, you good?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem, Steven. Thank you. Hopefully, we could do it again sometime. Bring you back for a part two, maybe a little longer. Um, I think it would be awesome. I think we would have a lot of fun. I had some better questions for you then too, because I was kind of like an hour's like I was like, man, an hour it's gonna go like that. So, which it
It's
usually
fun.
does, but
Yeah,
but
no, it's fun.
yeah. Thank you for your time. Thank you, because I'm a big fan. And I am gonna go definitely join your Patreon. I'm gonna try to get David in there too, Vincent.
Awesome. I'm excited. And definitely, like I said, you got to check out Chris's. At least just, again, I'm sorry, Chris, if I get people to join your Patreon and then they cancel it right away. You have to listen to that episode with Mike Wilbanks. It is so worth it.
Good night, Exotic Station. Thank everybody for being here. Thank everybody for coming out to the show. On that note, guys, just remember to stay positive, lift each other up, never put each other down, and love each other, man. Y'all have a great night. We out of here.